Students, this is another true story for you. It's an intermediate lesson, I'm afraid, so take your time if you're a beginner and look at the words carefully. It's about Fidel Castro, a Cuban gentleman. Was he a revolutionary, dictator, or a saviour of a country? You can decide when you read the text. Fidel Castro, born August 13th, 1926, has just died, aged 90, on November the 25th, 2016. He was one of the more extraordinary political figures of the 20th century. After leading a successful revolution in Cuba in 1959, he became a player on the global stage, dealing on equal terms with successive leaders of the two nuclear powers of Russia and the USA. A charismatic figure from the developing world, his influence was felt far beyond the shores of Cuba. Known as Fidel to friends and enemies alike, his life story is inevitably that of his people and their revolution. Castro's rule thus spanned nearly 5 decades, and during the Cold War between Russia and the USA, hardly a year went by without his mark being made on international politics. On several occasions, the world held its breath as events in and around Cuba threatened to spill beyond the Caribbean. A coup in 1952 by dictator Batista seemed to rule out the traditional road to political power for the young lawyer, and an impatient Castro led a group of revolutionaries who sought to overthrow the dictator by seizing the second largest military base in the country, the Moncada Barracks. The attack was a dismal failure, and many of the rebels were captured and killed. Castro himself survived. He was granted amnesty 2 years later and was exiled to Mexico. With his brother Raul, he prepared a group of armed fighters to assist the civilian resistance movement. Soon he met and enrolled in his band an Argentinian doctor, Che Guevara, which you'll find in the next lesson. Castro's tiny force sailed from Mexico to Cuba in December 1956 in the Granma, a small and leaky motor vessel. Landing in the east of the island after a rough crossing, the rebel band was attacked and almost annihilated by Batista's forces. A few members of Castro's troops survived to struggle up the impenetrable mountains of the Sierra Maestra. There they tended their wounds, regained their strength, and made contact with local peasants, and established links with the opposition in the city of Santiago. Throughout 1957 and 1958, Castro's guerrilla band grew in strength and daring. Civilian parties and opposition movements were forced to accept orders from the guerrillas in the hills, and even the Communist Party of Cuba conceded to him. On New Year's Eve, Batista fled the country, and in January 1959, Castro, aged 30, arrived in triumph in Havana. The Cuban Revolution had begun. In 1961, an invasion at the Bay of Pigs by Cuban exiles, encouraged and financed by the US government, sought to bring down Castro's revolution. It was swiftly defeated. In 1962, Khrushchev's government installed nuclear missiles in Cuba, which destabilized the region because of the proximity of the USA. Eventually, Khrushchev was forced to withdraw his missiles after days of global tension, but he did get a promise from America that they would not try to invade Cuba again, and they must remove their missiles from Turkey. Although President Kennedy had given a promise to Khrushchev that an invasion would never be repeated, the Americans continued to permit CIA-sponsored attacks on the island and refused to lift their economic blockade. Castro was effectively deprived of all contact with the US mainland. Almost miraculously, Castro survived this period, throwing open the country to foreign tourists and developing a healthcare system for everyone, something the USA still does not have, and an education of the people of Cuba. A visit by Pope John Paul II in 1998 was seen as an attempt to reduce the communist influence, but Castro's communism had always been tempered by his respect for or the Catholic Church. If John Paul had hoped that his visit would help undermine Castro's regime, he was to be disappointed. Castro was a legend long before his death. The early years of revolutionary government, with dashing young men in guerrilla fatigues, sporting the then unfashionable beards grown in the war, were romantic, chaotic, and exhausting. Castro worked at all hours of the day and night, and was rarely out of his 4x4, travelling from one end of the country to another. Castro's revolution was a remarkable peaceful process. Apart from a number of Batista's henchmen shot in the first weeks, much of the inner group around Castro survived into old age. Only this year, 2016, has President Obama restarted diplomatic relations and lifted various embargoes. Now there is a massive rebuilding program for hotels to accommodate the many tourists who want to see a country living in the past before it is spoilt by progress and modernisation. Okay, not too bad. You can look words up as before you do the vocabulary now. Okay, it's vocabulary. As usual, match the words on the left with the phrase on the right. I'll go down the words first. Number 1, revolution. Number 2, charismatic. Number 3, decade. Number 4, dictator. Number 5, lawyer. Number 6, leaky. Number 7, impenetrable. Number 8, peasants. Number 9, links. Number 10, fatigues. Number 11, chaotic. And number 12, proximity. And these are the phrases to match up with those words on the left. A, nearness or closeness. B, seep-in. C, movement to overthrow a government. D, connection. E, 10-year period. F, disorderly. G, legal executive. H, ruler by force, tyrant. I, clothing. J, magnetic personality. K, a limited passage through. And L, agricultural worker. Okay, take your time, sort those out. Then we go to vocal comprehension, same format as all the other lessons. Listen carefully. I will ask you 6 questions. Number 1, where is Cuba? Number 2, what occupation did the young Castro have? Number 3, did they get a cheap flight from Mexico to Cuba? Number 4, what 2 countries were the big superpowers? Number 5, what weapons did the Russians store in Cuba? And number 6, the last one, did he travel the country on horseback? Okay, good luck with those. Now the same format as all the lessons. We do word swap now. Word swap, change the word in capitals for the nearest in the meaning. The lawyer defended the prisoner in court. Could lawyer be A, dictator, B, solicitor, or C, government? Number 2, some links on websites are untrustworthy. Could links be offers, B, adverts, or C, connections? Number 3, America permitted CIA-sponsored attacks. It's sponsored, the same as military, B, funded, or C, taxed? Number 4, Castro was a legend before his death. Legend, is that the same as lawyer? B, fable, or C, hero? Number 5, the countryside was peaceful at dawn. Is peaceful the same as dusk, B, crowded, or C, calm. And number 6, the last one, there is a massive rebuilding program. Is massive the same as A, constructive, B, extensive, and C, restoration? Okay, that's the end of that.